Hello, and welcome to the weekly LinkedIn Live Leadership Series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and founder of E equals Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices from various generations, industries, and backgrounds. Because a team's job is to deliver business results. The role of the leader is to empower, inspire, and enable the people and deliver on those results. Now, although there's a repeatable formula that all leaders follow in some shape or form, expressing the engaging, executing, all powered by emotions, each leader's approach is different, and they apply the E3 leadership code uniquely. And there's no one way to lead. So each session, we're meeting with a different leader to hear how they lead and how they encourage and empower their people. We love to uncover what drives them and explore their unique leadership styles. So today, I am thrilled to introduce a remarkable leader, Debra Christmas. She serves as the VP and executive partner at Gartner and is a dedicated advocate for diversity and inclusion within the tech industry. She's also the founder of Stiletto Gladiators, which is a not-for-profit consultancy in Canada, and it's focused on women in IT mentoring and coaching diversity and inclusion. Debra is not just an influential strategist and coach, she's also an author whose work has pioneered significant discussions on diversity in technology. Her book, Please Stay: How Women in Tech Survive and Thrive, offers crucial insights into overcoming barriers in the tech sector. So, Debra and I have known each other, I think it's over 15 years, right, Debra?
Least.
And you've always inspired me. And I've always been very appreciative of your insights and your friendship because you have an amazing optimism and empathy and focus. It's just always really great when we get together, and I love it. And I still have a letter that you hand wrote to me years ago, and I remember receiving it in the mail, and it was just like, you just said thank you, and that you appreciated everything. And it just meant the world to me. And so I have always loved sharing these tips and tricks with you. But I know your story is very rich. And so I'd love for you to also introduce and share more with the audience of who you are and, what brings you here.
Wow. First of all, I'm thrilled to just see the two of our faces here on the screen. We go back a long way, and we've traveled some interesting roads together, during our time in this field, learning, I think, a lot from each other. I know I learned tons from you. I can remember when I first went into the pre-sales role, and you're running all of the strategy and operations, and I'm like, yeah, that's a powerhouse right there. So learn lots. Journey has been an interesting one this year. Believe it or not, I'm saying it out loud. 45 years in the IT industry for me this year, and still having a fabulous time. I just, it's not that there haven't been some big rocks that I've had to move, or bumps in the road, but it has been a spectacular career. Spectacular. I'll probably do 5 more years in corporate life, only because there was somebody from HP, Kathy, I'm not kidding, who literally posted something in one of the HP alumni groups celebrating 50 years at HP. That's what he posted. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do that. I need to celebrate 50 years.
Yeah.
The decision was just made. I get asked all the time, are you going to retire? No. Okay, I'm not. But the journey started young. 22. I was 22 when I got my first manager role, and which was interesting. But the first big one was, we have an echo. Do you hear it, Kathy? We have a bit of a, just letting, I don't know if everybody else hears it. There's a
I
step.
think I don't hear it so much. It might just be you.
Okay, so hopefully we're fine. 30 years old is when I got, I will say, the big role, where I moved to a headquarters. I walked into a room of 8 men. This is 1987. And me, nobody certainly looked like me, that's for sure. And they were 15 to 20 years older than I was. I think actually age was more of the issue than anything else, to tell you the truth. People sort of say, wow, gender, person of color, age, because I for some of them, I could have been their daughter from an age perspective.
Right.
And they really looked at me like, what are you doing here in this? It was a very interesting experience. And I had to you have to hold your own in these spaces. And I knew that very quickly. I was brought to tears once, and I'm like, that'll never happen again, ever. And I remember walking into my senior executive who hired me, an executive vice president who knew what he was doing, but everybody else didn't think he knew what he was doing, because he hired somebody from the field working with clients, selling solutions to run IT. And people looked at that and thought, what the heck is that? Who is doing that? So I knew I had, and rightly so, to tell you the truth, because I knew nothing about IT. I was a field, title was a system
Mhm.
engineer. There's nothing about IT. I used it, but I didn't know anything about it in that sense. And he was trying to change the face of IT to become a service-driven organization. Now, you think about 1987, how unusual that would have been. We talk about this now like it's nothing. Those are the words that we use all the time. But it was probably my biggest moment to sort of understand what it meant to be sitting at an executive table. And then, I've taken different roles. I ran channels for 10 years. I went into pre-sales, for a decade. Ran pre-sales for the Canadian market, and then, as took over the North and South American. So it's always been an evolution of new things, leading teams of, small teams to large teams. The pre-sales organization was over 300 people, and you had directors and managers, across Canada, the United States, and Latin America. So you learn a lot as exposed
Mhm.
to different geographies, different people, different styles of working, different cultures, different ways of, what do I need to know when I
Yeah.
am going into this country to engage, effective, be respectful, and to, not come in there like, know it all. So it's been a very serious learning journey, but it's been a wonderful one. I've learned substantially from so many people. So
That's
I'm at
excellent.
Gartner
It's
now.
funny, as you were
Um,
telling your story.
sorry.
No,
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry,
it
I
was
cut you
fast.
off. Now you're at Gartner?
Um, yeah, when it was time to leave HP, which was a very defining moment. I had been there for 28 and a half years, almost 3 decades with this organization. I did 2 tours of duty because I was a CIO in the Canadian space at 2 cities. So I did, after running IT at HP, and there was 3 people running IT. It wasn't just one of us, there was 3. We were segmented into various categories. I went into the municipal space and the city space, and that was eye-opening. I'd never worked for government, in that kind of way. But when my time at HP had come to an end and I was asked what next, I said, oh yeah, I'm only interested in one company. And this was when I was at, leadership transition at, these companies that help you transition from one role to the next. I said, they were shocked. They were like, what do you mean you're only interested? I said, I'm only interested in Gartner. That's it. And they were like, really? Why? And I said, well, look at this company. They're a research company. That's knowledge. That's a lot of smart people in one place. There was a lot of HP people there too that had gone from HP to Gartner. And now I said, where else would I get the opportunity to take almost 40 years in this field and pay it forward? Because you work with executives where you're an executive advisor to them, and you're working with them on strategy, talent, their own leadership development, decisions that they have to make, with regards to technology, roadmaps, et cetera, et cetera. It's been an amazing experience because you get to share what you learned over 40 years. And of course, you have the power of research to support that. So it's a match made in heaven. I'm having a blast.
Excellent. I love the stories. You reminded me when you said 30. I remember I was so excited to finally turn 30 because I was consulting. I was working at Ernst and Young doing auditing, and then doing some consulting work. And it was hard to walk into a room of someone with 20 years senior, and you're sitting there saying, "No, I don't agree," or "Here's how you should do it," and they're like, "Who are you? You're a snot nose, you know."
Right.
woman.
And that was being polite.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, no, we've learned a lot over
And we're
those
still
years,
standing,
and
Kathy. We're still standing.
Carrie, yes, we are. And Carrie's got Carrie Niella shares in here, right? 1987, when you share that date, it was only 13 years after when women could actually get a credit
Jeez.
card on
Can
their
you
own,
imagine?
right?
Just makes my head spin.
Things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
So, Deborah, I know, as you mentioned, you've led across a lot of different teams. You help different executives in there and coaching them and things. How would you describe your leadership style? How do you show up?
I anchor myself, and it sounds weird, but the philosophy that I have is you have to ground yourself in the humanity of leadership, because that's what we're talking about. We see a lot of discussions right now with regards to empathetic leaders and being kind and, engaging. Of course, you're leading people. So I've always looked at it from a perspective of, you lead from the heart. We got good brains in our head, but we are engaging with people. That's got me into trouble sometimes,
Yeah.
because you care a lot about people, and have to be careful that you
Mhm.
don't develop a blind spot because of that caring. You need to be able to, still do the hard things and make the tough decisions, and they're never easy, because leadership's not easy. Leadership, not for the faint
No.
of heart, truly. When I talk to people about attributes of leadership, and I said the most important attribute to me, and I do a lot of leadership workshops, it's courage. I said, I have a list of about 50 attributes of leadership. The number one to me is courage, because without it, you can't do anything else. You can't do the hard things. You can't address the issues that you might experience. You can't have difficult conversations. You can't challenge another executive if you don't have courage.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole list of other things, and that come with that. So I say to folks, because the number one word that I would use to describe, when I hear the word leadership, it's impact. You have impact, and you don't even know the impact you're having.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's on multiple facets, right? You have impact on the people. You need to have an impact on the business. You have an impact on the team. Like, your suppliers, right? Like, as a leader, you're impacting a whole ecosystem of people and driving
Correct.
results.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that, with people being the heart of it, is a lot of people get promoted, and especially in the
Mhm.
tech world. You can keep me honest on this, having been in tech so long, a lot of people get promoted because they're
Correct.
technically strong, but they don't
No.
receive any of the training, because leadership is a very different job than just doing your technical role
Correct.
and leading
Yep.
other people.
We see it all the time.
Yeah. And is it do you think that's perpetuating? Do you think it's getting worse from what you're saying?
I don't think so, and I think the reason is that in more and more organizations, the ability to be successful is not only vertical anymore. We sort of are ascending in our careers. So you might be a salesperson or a pre-sales person or whatever. Well, the next is then a senior one, and then the next is this. Oh, and then the next logical step is a management role. But not everybody is cut out to do that. And I remember having conversations. I remember once having a conversation with like the top salesperson, in our market, that was considering a leadership position. And I said, "What? Why do you want to do that?" Because that's the most important question. Because it's, first of all, you're certainly not going to make the same amount of money, that's for sure, as a top sales. But I said, I don't think it's for you. He wanted to talk about it, and I said, I don't think it's for you. And he said, why? I said, because you have to care more about them than you do about you, and that's not where you are. That's not where you are. And he didn't go for the job, because I said, unless you can do that, this is not the right place for you to be. If it's about another challenge,
Yeah.
or it wasn't about compensation, but for a lot of people, it's about compensation, or it's about, that vertical rise. Well, I think now there's a lot more different options for people. Lateral moves, moving into another business unit, taking on something new. They don't have to do the vertical ascension. So I think it's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. And, it is that you can accomplish as much or more by going
Yeah.
lateral, right? But it is a different role. Like your responsibilities change because you have to care and feed for the people that are in your
Yep.
remit. And so it's been, I always think it's interesting thinking about people and they're like, oh, I have to be a manager. Well, why?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
And empathy.
Um,
I said this just last week. I was talking to, because we're writing about empathetic leadership. And I literally, in this room of leaders, there was about 400 of them. And I said, some of you are Spock. Okay. So where's the empathy coming from? You are not even going to know how to do this in the first place. So you're going to have to get some training, or, get into some kind of
yeah,
coaching situation where someone can coach you how to be more empathetic with engaging with the workforce. Half of the workforce are millennials. Half. They have a different expectation of leadership and how they be led.
yeah,
Why? We sent them out to the workforce with that expectations. I got a couple of them, okay, that I've sent them out, but this is what they could expect. And that's what they expect to have. So it requires a different style of leading.
yeah, I agree. And we talk about at Equals Why, we talk a lot about how to drive change, right? In that E3 leadership code, I always talk in the sense of like a three-legged stool that you need to be able to express the end vision. Where are you going? Because people want to know, right? And especially the millennials want to
Mhm.
have purpose. Where are we going? Why are we going there? Engaging people the way they want to be engaged, because you and I and everyone else around us like to be
Yep.
engaged differently, and then execute. If we don't deliver results, we've seen what happens when a leader doesn't deliver results, right? That's why we're there. But I always say the seat of that three-legged chair or the stool is empathy. And it's the people element, connecting to the hearts of others is how you really, influence change and drive results. So I think this is the
Yep.
simpatico. We've always been about people first and all of that. So I'm seeing a question in the chat here from Ralph. So have you seen the field of leadership change over the years? You talk about the 45 plus years, and if
Well, the
so,
first
how?
thing we're tired of this command and control. Okay. We're done with that. We're done. That thing is over. Nobody wants to be bossed around, ordered around. I read something the other day that we need to change the word of boss. It's got a negative. I thought, oh, I've never
Mm,
really kind of thought about that. We say my boss, instead of my VP or my manager. We all have a manager or somebody we have to be accountable for. But I think we're seeing that kind of shift, and we're trying to, push down through the organization the ability to make decisions, the ability to take action, and it doesn't have to be. I've got to go to the senior person or my leader to get a decision on that. And so I think that is shifting, and we're actually, I think, very in a very open way, expecting everybody to lead. You don't have to have people
yeah,
to be a leader. I've seen 7-year-olds that could spin circles around a few adults with their ability to, and they're fascinating for me to watch. Is one of my favorite things is to see children lead. It's just a natural, some people are naturally gifted in leading, but you can also, this is also a skill. This is not just being charismatic and
yes,
having a certain level of talent. You can learn to be a good leader. You have to be self-aware. You've
yep,
got to pay attention. You need to seek feedback, etc. But I am seeing this shift that we're not so hierarchical, which moves that command and control, and we're encouraging people. We want people to step up, to say things, to open their mouths.
yep,
So I think that's where it's shifting. I think some of the folks that are anchored in older leadership styles will struggle, but for this workforce that we have now, they're hoping for that.
yeah. I think one of the interesting parts, realization for me, was when I start to talk to people that have been in the military. because the military used to, in my mind, was always a command and control style, and they have changed dramatically. And because decisions have to be made so quickly, you're going to be out in the field. And exactly what you're saying is you have to be able to delegate that decision making to everybody, in the field. And so I'm just checking on, can you hear me? Am
I saw
I?
it reconnecting there for a minute. It just slowed down for a second.
Okay, I'm back. So the military, right? They've gotten rid of the command and
Yeah.
control, and they've gotten into empowering everybody that's in the troops. And it really starts with that purpose, right? Expressing where are we going, what's the mission, why do we need to be here, what does success look like, so that when you're in and you have to make a split
Split.
decision, you're
Yeah.
ready for it.
Yeah. And that's a hard shift for them, right? Because you've got people's lives that a decision has to be made very, very quickly. But they actually are trying to change the face of the military here as well in Canada. From that, you need to be able to give an order on a battlefield. On a battlefield where people could die, you have to be able to give an order and people follow that order. The challenge is in a military or even a paramilitary organization, when you come off the field, that demeanor is not necessarily required anymore. It might be necessary in certain circumstances. We're in an emergency situation. Someone's got to be in command. Okay? But how to turn that switch off when you come out of, a real battlefield where there's real weapons and things of that nature is challenging because they're trained that way, right? They're trained that way. But that's not what we have in corporate life. We're in a different kind of battlefield, but we ain't going to die. Okay? We're not gonna,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. We can care about the
right.
people. I agree with you
Yeah.
completely. So I would love to hear a little bit more if you're willing to talk about your
Mm,
book. You know, tell me more, tell the audience, and then you also have, Women in Tech
yeah.
Tribe on your, um,
Yeah.
so
Thank
tell.
you. That was a wonderful journey. It's one of these very serendipitous things where Kelly Irwin, my co-author, and I, we did not know each other before we wrote Please Stay or Please Join that we released this year in May, which is going after 6 to 6, we're going after young girls to get them to come into tech. That is, the book is Please Join. There's no place like tech. And we interview the most amazing young girls from 6 to 16 that just blow your mind. For some of it, that I had to say to the parents, you better buckle up because that gal could be president one day or something. And I wasn't even joking. Like the most impressive, she was 6. She was 6 years old. My God. But we wrote Please Stay. We Every time I, have talked about women in tech, women in leadership, women in business, it's the same issues, Kathy. We thought they were unique to technology, by the way. But when we went out to sort of crowdsource, the subtitle of the book, we heard from hundreds of women around the world say, "Could you write about my industry?" They were in, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, research, everywhere. Like, no, we're just going to write about tech. We're just what we know, because we are still a male-dominated industry. Women in tech are about 24 to 28%, depending on how you count it. And we need to change that because we are building, one of the things that one of our leaders here said a few years ago, technology is changing civilization. Like, just let that thing sink in for a minute. We need to be at the table, at the keyboard, in the room while we're building these solutions. We have to be in the room because they will be biased. They're already biased, and they're going to become more biased if we're not there. So we wrote about all the issues that women experience in tech and provided some guidance and some insights on what to do about it. What do you do about it? How do you handle it? Because you do have to handle it in some way. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to go up one side of people and down the other. There are really excellent, tools and techniques that we've provided as to how to handle it. But we need to change the field because women are exiting the field at the rate of 50%.
I
It's
was going to say, because women are going in college, right? It's about 50-50 in college, correct?
and then they drop off.
And they drop off. So it
Yeah,
is the environment that they're coming into
correct.
still that is not
Still,
conducive to wanting to stay.
still, it's, it's the people, they're not leaving just, to have children and come back. They're leaving because they don't feel the environment is conducive to them being successful. They're not included. There's not a sense of belonging. We can change this. I'm actually shocked we're still talking about this 50 years later. We're still talking about this. But we have to stop it. We have to stop it for the sake of humanity, for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, because it is a wonderful field to be in. You and I have been in it for decades, and we need to encourage them to come into the field. And that means we need the women in it to stay. So
Yeah.
they have role models and mentors. So that's what we wrote about. And it's created a wonderful community of women that we talk to on a regular basis that come to us, seeking guidance and advice. We get guidance and advice from them. What are you struggling with? What can we help you with? Do you need support? Because this is a very strong community. We can provide
Yeah.
support to these women, no matter what their age is. We can provide support.
So, with all the research and talking to different people from your experience, I have my own, but there's some. What are a couple of points that you've heard that surprise you, or that our team, our audience should hear to be aware of?
For the first thing is, don't let anybody tell you can't do anything. All right, like as simple as that. Like, do not let anybody minimalize you, tell you can't do anything, shut you down. No, you need to stop it, and you need to stop every single instance. You have to find the way to do that with your voice, because your voice, Kathy, and my voice are different. Now, we're not putting up with it. So we're either, no matter what style it's not happening. We're not putting up with it. But there's a lot of women that are, they're quieter. They're an introvert. I have no fear. Like, what are you going to do? What's the worst that can happen? But they might be
Right.
at the beginning of their career, and they do have fear. They're afraid of retribution or something. And I said to them, you got to build your voice, and you have to build it in the way that makes sense for you, because you're just at the beginning of your journey. You've got 20 or 30 or whatever, maybe even 40 years ahead of you. So you have to find your voice, and you have to make it strong, and you have to find your style. If you're not there yet, use somebody else's voice. Okay? Go find somebody else, like a you or a me, use their voice and get support. Even within your organization, get support. Build the political capital until you feel confident enough to go and do it yourself. So we provide, some real practical tips for them to navigate whatever the environment is that they're in. And in some cases, that might mean you're in the wrong environment. This
Yeah.
environment is not for you. You see the
Yeah.
behavior, time to go and navigate you where you can thrive somewhere.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's interesting. We just finished up our boot camp, and this is one of the things that we really stress is that everybody has to find their voice. And
Mhm.
there is no one right way. Like, we tend to think there's this model that a leader is strong, powerful male, right? And so people look at that and say, well, I'm not, right? I'm more of an introvert. I like a lot more details. I take a little bit more time to get there. And we were just coaching someone the other day and saying, don't worry. She's like, oh my God, am I now stuck? And I won't be able to
Yeah.
advance as a leader. And I'm like, absolutely not. You need
Right.
to own who you are and show up and be authentic, because then you can bring a different point of view into the workplace. And that's what we need. We
Oh my
need that
God.
diversity of thought, right?
Absolutely. And what I've said to, there's a lot of introverts, a lot of, actually the majority of IT are introverts, by the way.
Correct. Yeah.
Kelly, my co-author, I'm extreme extrovert. She's introvert. And you better pay attention when she speaks, because she has a lot of good things that come out of her mouth that are strong and powerful. She just speaks them in a very different way.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important for us to find our way so that we
Mhm.
actually can build this capability. And what I've said to many of the young women, because I hear this all the time, this was said in a meeting or this was done in a meeting that threw them off their game a little bit, and then as they're walking down the hallway back to their office, of course, the thought comes in their head as to what they should have said. And I said, so my advice is, You practice, practice, practice. You find somebody like me or somebody else that is quick on their feet. That never happens to me. So, but I'm an extrovert and I've paid attention to these nuances and I'm ready for whatever comes my way. So what I've said to them, you're going into a meeting, you're concerned because this happened at the last meeting or whatever. Practice. I'll practice with you. I will play that person and I want you to come back with your response. And the more that you practice that, the easier it will become so that you are not thrown off your game just because somebody said or did something. That's really where we see a lot of the challenge. And in some other cases, they're hesitant, they're afraid. And I'm like, just do it afraid. Just do it afraid. What's the worst that could happen? They're not going to fire you.
Yeah. Well, and I also like to, on the other side, is really help and empower other people to see that, right? Like you
Right.
talk about your partner who
Yep.
has strong things to say, but you and I have to step back sometimes and remember that, right? And give them the floor and the space to
Yep.
share what they have to say, right? And
Correct.
I think leadership is all about understanding where your strengths are, but then understand how you can support and bring others forward and help
Oh
support
my
them.
God. Like, we use this expression now, meet people where they are. Well, first of all, I need to know, where are they? Like, where are they? And
Correct.
what room are you in? Understand the field of
Mm-hmm.
play, the room that you are in, because you're in different rooms all through your day. Understand what the dynamics are. And yes, we as extroverts and loud voices absolutely have to pause. We have to not speak first. We need to make space for other people. People get nervous when we're quiet, by the way. People say, are you ill? No, I'm not. Okay. But you haven't said anything. Okay. Okay, I will in a minute. I'm trying to let other people speak. So we do have to do all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. And I always make sure I have someone that has the opposite energy of
Yes.
me, right? And give
Yes.
them permission to tap me on the shoulder and be like, yeah, that's coming out too
Yeah. To have
much.
those people that you trust.
You'll appreciate this. Yeah, exactly. But you'll appreciate this. My mother got me a t-shirt last Christmas that said, I'm not bossy, it's leadership skills. Because that's how it comes out sometimes. And I don't mean it, but in
It shows
stress,
up.
it's going to really show itself. And I need people to say, Kath, enough. That's
Yeah.
you're coming across the
I have
wrong
a
way.
sign. You probably can't see it. It's above the door back there that says, I'm not bossy. I'm just being helpful. Yeah. But you have to, if you're more self,
Yeah, I
when
like
we're
that one.
self-aware, we actually realize, ooh, I gotta dial this back and make space for other people for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, Deborah, where can people
Oh
get
yeah,
your
it's on
book?
all
Is
the
it out
big
on Amazon? Is
players.
that the best place to
So
go?
they can just order online. They can go to Women in Tech Tribe as well, .com. But all the thank you so much for plugging it. We've really had a wonderful time writing it and still engaging with these women. So it's all the sites is there.
Excellent. Well, it's encouraging me. I've written the first draft of the book, the E3 Leadership Code, and now I'm on to the draft to rewriting, and so hopefully, getting ready to put that
Go
out
do
next
it.
year. So I'm gonna call on you and lean on you for some of your experience.
Wonderful journey. Do it.
Um, so yeah, I'm on it. So we're at. I can't believe you and I could talk
I
all day
know.
on this
I know.
stuff. um, so just in closing, what's a piece of advice you would give to a new leader, really stepping into the world today, and how to best show
Oh,
up?
a couple of things. Know your worth. Okay. You need to know your worth and your value. You really do. You have to anchor yourself to your own values and your principles. And don't ever let them be compromised. You can't ever let them be compromised. And you've got to be able to stand up for yourself. You got to be able to negotiate for yourself. But base camp is knowing your worth, knowing your value. And don't let anybody take that away from you. I hear terms. We hear terms out there that are associated, you know, with women and calling our capabilities into question. You are so capable. Do not let anybody, you know, here's, I'll leave it with my favorite quote. Okay, this is my favorite quote. My children heard me say this to them their whole life. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That's Eleanor Roosevelt. I heard that 30 years ago and I've never forgotten it. So don't give their consent.
Absolutely. I agree. And I will say for the audience out there, I mean, this is a very strong message for women, but I've also found there's a lot of men that they're more introverted,
Yeah,
and they have to learn as well of finding their voice and their
correct.
authenticity and showing up the way they find is, authentic and meaningful to them, and lead forward, because there's
Correct.
this mold out here that does not represent
Yeah.
where we
Yeah,
need
it's
to
not
be,
just
and
for
we
us.
need
You're
to
absolutely
change that.
correct.
So, yep, I agree.
Oh,
Well,
thank
Deborah,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate this, and hopefully we'll have you back on, because you have so much knowledge and wisdom to share to
Oh,
everyone, and I
as
always
you
love
said, we could
chatting
chat
with
for
you.
hours. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully some nuggets of wisdom were taken away. This 45 years has got to count for something.
Absolutely.
Bye,
Thanks.
Kathy.